we should sing the song every time.
Yeah.
Welcome, Internet, to TIGRadio, the live
Internet.
show about independent game development by game developers for game developers. This is our 5th show. We are a weekly radio show that takes place now, if you're listening live. And if you're not listening live, you should, because we get drunk after the live recording part is done. And
So drunk.
Yeah.
I just shoot some heroin
No, I eat ramen.
Just go straight to the heroin.
and I smoke it like a cigarette.
So a couple things to take care of at the top of the hour. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, facebook.com/TIGRadio or twitter.com/TIGRadio. And we try to post guest information a couple days before, sometimes a day before, to let you know who's coming up on the show, or you can just kind of keep in touch with whatever we're up to. Also, we do take audio essays. We don't have one to play today, but if you would like to air your opinions in front of a couple hundred people, just send us an OGG or MP3 or WMA or MP2 file or something, and we will play it on the air. Shoot 4 or 5 minutes recorded. Anything, Ben, Tommy?
No.
Yeah, send one in that doesn't suck is ideal.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be edited.
Yeah. Please make them short and to the point. More of an editorial style. So the show today, we have John and Tyler from Closure, the IGF-nominated Closure, to talk about their game. And then after that, Steve and I will talk a little bit about the upcoming Game Developers Conference and Independent Game Summit. But with no further ado, let's bring on John and Tyler, who Ben and Tommy will interact with, because my throat hurts.
Yeah, we're going to take the reins. You have reins, Tommy?
I'm just going to drink this your beer.
I got one of them. Do you have the other one?
I have the other one.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Hold on, I'm
Are you
hearing myself
both there?
twice here.
Can
There we go.
You good? Is everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Say hi, boys. Introduce yourselves.
Well, I am Tyler Glaiel. I programmed Closure,
Cool.
design levels and stuff.
And I'm John Schubbe, and basically I do all the art for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us
Go for it.
how this whole thing kind of came together. I mean, I know, Tyler, you showed me the very, very early Flash prototype thing when, I guess it was right when Flash started letting you do more like almost pixel shader stuff. So just kind of explain the origins, if you will.
Well, when Flash 9 came around, they introduced a kind of pixel shader kind of thing, which runs on the CPU, so it's kind of sucky. But I made a shader with it that turned an image black and white, and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. It's kind of like, and decided to come up with a game to go with it, because whenever you do something that they like just introduce as a new feature, everyone always just like goes, oh my god, how did you do that? And they like your game more for it. So
When was that? When did it first go up in that initial iteration?
well, it was like a month after Flash 9 had come out when I came up with the idea of, what if you can only walk on what you can see? And I was like, that kind of sounds like an okay idea. I'll make that if I don't come up with anything better. So I didn't come up with anything better, and I made Closure. And
Nice.
yeah, and I showed John the demo because it kind of looked ugly because the character was a box with a smiley face on it.
Okay, so you made a prototype first without art and then got John involved.
Right, because
Cool.
I think,
I remember the box.
yeah, I think I still have a switch somewhere.
So you
But
can
yeah, like
character-
I had known John online for a while before then, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll make a game with you eventually. And then like 4 years later, it was like, hey, I have a game that you can do art for.
How did you know of him? Was it from other Flash projects or what?
Yeah, just like Newgrounds and stuff.
Cool.
Like everyone on Newgrounds knows everyone else on Newgrounds. It's pretty neat community.
Yeah.
Pretty tight.
Yeah.
So I
Go for
guess,
it, man.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep interrupting you,
No, do it.
Ben. I'm very sorry.
Don't fucking worry about it.
I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to ask my questions, and then you can ask yours. Everything's going to be fine. Okay?
Mm.
Okay. So, um, after you basically put together Closure, you put it out on Newgrounds, and then that was like right after that you got into Indiecade, right? It is or how,
After that, it got into the experimental gameplay session
that's
at
right.
GDC
Yeah.
last year. Yeah. So I got myself a free ticket to GDC, which was pretty awesome.
Nice.
And yeah, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Everyone makes such good games, and the IGF has a cool award ceremony, and all this stuff's going on here. And I'm like, oh, I want to be a part of this next year too. So I'm like, oh, but better make my game better first.
Right. And that's when you decided to like take it out of bullshit Flash and then put it in like do a real engine for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can call my engine a real engine.
Well, it's
Right.
well,
Yeah.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah. But yeah, I was like, oh, Flash kind of sucks. I can't do everything I want. I can't make it even. I couldn't even run my game in full screen because Flash is so slow for it. Adobe liked it, but I didn't, and I couldn't have physics or anything in the game. I was like, oh, better start using the fact that I just started learning C++ and OpenGL and put that to use.
Nice. So
Mhm.
yeah. So then it was Indiecade.
Yeah, then it was PAX 10 actually, and then
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you've been in like everything now.
yeah, pretty much. I didn't enter the stupid GameStop one though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you went to the PAX. Did you
Yep.
get swine flu at PAX?
What?
Did you get swine flu at PAX?
Oh, swine.
I probably did actually. It's
I think I
pretty
got
bad.
it too.
I think my controller still has the swine flu on it.
that shit's barbicide.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't care. I've been using the same controller as a demo controller like ever since then. So people got swine flu from me.
Yeah.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Welcome.
So I actually have a question for you, Tyler. Do you feel like going to school has helped you? Because I've actually kind of wondered why you're in school and why you're not just pushing on the stuff in your own time.
Yeah, I always get asked that question, and it hasn't really helped me that much, other than the fact that pretty much when I have to do school and my game at the same time, it pretty much means my entire life is about programming.
But
So
you don't feel like the skills or even like the connections have helped you? Because it seems like you're almost doing more to help your school than they're doing to help you. But I don't know if that's true or not.
well, they don't really, get bragging rights for my game since they didn't help in it. So I'm not really doing much to help them, and it's not really doing that much to help me. Well, I don't know. Like, had I not gone to school, I can't really tell what would happen if something indirectly related to going to school helped me
Yeah.
get better at this stuff, or maybe just gave me time to do stuff, or I don't know.
So if I can actually just ask you directly, like, why did you go to school? Was it family pressure? Was it the sense of, oh, I mean, after you're done with high school, you go to college, right? Or was it just sort of oh, I guess I should go to school now?
It was a little bit of everything combined with the fact that I didn't know C++ or OpenGL or any of that stuff at the end of high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I felt like I still had a lot to learn, and I still do have a lot to learn, and I'm still learning a lot. There's just a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah, but I mean, people that are listening that might not know, I mean, you've made a lot of games. Do you actually know what game number Closure is? Like 60, 65?
Yeah, it's like 50 something.
Yeah.
But most of the games on my website, well, most of the games on my website are, stuff that I made to learn and felt like putting on the internet anyway. So
Yeah.
it's not really completely fair to say that I've made like 60 full, giant, huge, great games, considering like, you could probably pick out 45 of them that are absolutely horrible, and then maybe 5 that are actually pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, we've actually used you before, and Steve and I gave a talk at a local school once, and it was kind of about how do you, get into the career, how do you get in the industry, how do you make yourself better, and we actually pointed out like, there's this kid named Tyler, he's like 18, this is, I think like a year or two ago, and he's made like 40, 50 games, and then he kind of pointed to the audience for like, why haven't you made 40 or 50, like why aren't you doing this? And I don't know. I think that's one of the best answers is just make a crap ton of stuff. I think you actually do it really, really well.
Yeah,
I mean,
it speaks to Tyler's. I mean, it speaks to his like devotion and want to do these games. I mean, I know a lot of people that are in school for games and they don't make anything other than what is assigned to them. And it's I know this one girl that's going to DeVry or some shit for game design, and she's yet to make one game. And it's like, well, then why the fuck are you going for game design? To see, it's this weird kind of seesaw in a way where if you want to really make games, you just make them. But if you just think you want to make games, you go to school and you try to learn how to make games instead of actually doing. I try to get Tyler to quit school like every week. I really.
Yeah, a lot of people do, and a lot of people try to get me to stay in too. So
Yeah.
Well,
sorry,
I
I don't
actually
value your opinion that much, Tommy.
I actually dropped out of school, so I'm not a very good influence.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm probably going to take a break next year anyway. Finish the game.
Is that code for dropout?
It's in quotation marks.
Okay. Okay.
I'm still on break from school too.
Yeah.
John, I actually had a question for you. What was your inspiration for the style of the first iteration of Closer? I mean, how much of it was technical restrictions, and how much of it was that's just exactly how you wanted it to look?
Actually, a lot of it was kind of technical restrictions.
Sure.
Because the shader that Tyler made in Flash didn't actually. It wasn't high resolution enough, because just converting everything to bitmaps in Flash made everything really pixelized and grainy looking.
Mm-hmm.
So when he came up with the shader, it was a certain way that I had to color everything to make certain things appear with more light. So I just kind of went with that, and it was basically my test run with the Flash version.
Okay.
It was kind of complicated at first because I hadn't really done a real graphics for a game. Like all the rest of the games that I've done were kind of cruder, cartoony graphics, and this is when I've really stepped up and done a lot more than I thought I could have before I started. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this, but there's been a graphical update really since the IGF version. Is that more in line of what you originally wanted to do?
Yeah, it's a lot more in line because I wanted a lot more like effects as you move the light through the world. The parts of the levels kind of appear in different ways, and it kind of looks like flowy. And there's a lot of other things I want to try too.
Yeah.
Once we start making more improvements, but yeah, the higher resolution does help a lot because I'm not restricted to just the grainy look of the game.
Yeah. How happy are you with it personally, with where it is now?
Well, I always get tired of my stuff about a month after I do it, so I may be updating more of the stuff that's out right now, but I'm maybe 3/4 of the way there.
Cool.
Yeah.
How transparent are you guys going to be with the changes? I mean, I don't know outside of the IGF what you've shared with the public, but I mean, how much do people know, or do you want them to know about how the new version's coming along?
Well, with the new version, we have more, I guess, more game mechanics that are going to be involved. So that's the main thing that we don't really want to share too much about because it's not all installed yet, and we want some things to be surprises because a lot of people have already played the Flash version, so we want a lot of people to actually want to buy the next one.
Sure.
So a lot of people know that there's more surprises, but graphically, I think there's not too much, but I never know what I'm going to update or change, so usually I'm not I'm not too into sharing too much
Sure.
preliminary stuff because I'm kind of I don't know I'm kind of displeased with some things I do.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah, in terms of revealing stuff to the public, I figure I can just say this right now since we've hinted to it a bunch, but there's going to be essentially four different storylines, characters, and sets in the game, and it just that way we can do a little bit more with it than we could with the Flash one, and it's not so much like play 100 levels in a row and then you're done. So there's more to do there, and we've revealed a lot of what's going into the first set of the first set.
When you say set, is that like a specific aesthetic, like a world kind of idea?
Yeah, it's like there's going to be a number of levels in each set, and each one has its own character and its own distinct storyline to it, which we're working on it. But we're not planning on revealing too much about the other three sets because that's going to be a surprise for when the game actually comes out.
Awesome.
Have you guys thought about too much about who your target audience is? Are you trying to target it to like the hardcore puzzle gamer, or do you want to keep it at a certain level of casual where it's easy and accessible? I mean, how much have you discussed internally, like who are we actually making this for, or who are you testing the game against when you actually have these builds that go out to like friends and family?
Yeah, well, I don't really have a target audience, and I'm not necessarily thinking it's going to be that casual because, well, whenever I try to make something easy, it turns out not to be easy. But I'm trying to target basically the same people that Portal and Braid targeted.
Cool. So this will probably lead into a rant, but you are the only IGF Nuovo finalist that is a finalist in other categories. All four of the other Nuovo finalists are only Nuovo finalists, and you're also in for audio and for technical. And I know technical, especially for technical game programmers, is a very contentious category. So, I mean, feel free to just jump off on that.
Right. Okay, the technical rant. Here we go. I spent all day today and yesterday, all the days, all the time that I was actually spending programming, which is, hours, trying to make my engine less retarded. Um, there is just stuff everywhere, and it's kind of nasty code, and it's because I was learning how to do C++ and OpenGL at the same time that I was writing the game. It has Box2D for physics in it, which I hacked some other stuff into it to get the game to work. And when I got the technical nomination, I sat there and I was like thinking to myself, it hit me that meant that my game was in the top 5 out of 300 games for technical excellence. And I know some of the other games that were in there, like Overgrowth and Super Meat Boy and stuff, that didn't get nominated, that did way more like great technical stuff than I did. And even looking at the list of the other ones in there, Vessel, I think Vessel should be the one that wins that category.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the problem with technical is that it's difficult.
You can't judge it.
Oh yeah, you're still like yeah. Yeah, it's hard to see the code. Like if you have the most clever like patch updater system, like no one's really going to notice or care about that. Versus if you had, some sort of hack that is really exposed to gameplay. I don't know.
Yeah, well, like it's just you can't really look at a game and judge how technically excellent it is. Like someone could put out this amazing physics-based game or whatever, and then they could. And it turns out that they used some third-party physics engine, and that was the entire core of their game engine, and they used Unity or whatever.
Yeah.
With the third-party physics engine, someone playing that would go, "Wow, these physics are amazing, and it's 3D, and it looks great." And it's like you could have done almost no work to actually get it up to that point, because there's other stuff out there that does that for you. And then someone could spend 10 months writing their own amazing physics engine or whatever and release it, and then it doesn't match up to ones that are already written, and it's just like you can't judge it at all because you don't know what went into actually making the game.
Yeah, I think it's a disconnect between technical impressiveness and then technical difficulty. Like the one parallel that I have is actually, well, probably theater stuff, but also like really technical street unicycling. Like there's a lot of unicycle tricks, and I do unicycling stuff like that are really really hard and really really impressive to other unicyclists, and there are a lot of tricks that just are really really easy to perform but look great to the bystander. Like, oh my God, you see that guy just jump? Versus, oh my God, you see that, 540 crank flip? Like, no one's really going to know how hard the second one is, and they're probably going to fail because it's a much more difficult trick. So I think the problem with technical is that there's a lot of stuff to like the layman judge that has played a lot of games but doesn't really program, and they're impressed by things like physics. It's like, oh, it's just box 2D, and they're not really impressed by, oh, this engine is really really portable and written by one person. So I mean, what is your? Do you have any ideas on how to approach that from the organizational standpoint? Like, how should we be judging technical?
Yeah, I'd do a jury judge for that technically.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think that would make the most sense if you get a bunch of people that have programmed engines, and not just like people that kind of casually use Game Maker to make some games, but people that like have written their own engines from scratch that understand everything that goes into something like that. To sit on a panel and try to evaluate games, have people list which middleware engines they've actually used and whatever when they submit their stuff. That way, someone going through there could look at the list of games in there and say, oh, well, Heroes of New Earth. Well, yeah, it's 3D and stuff, but it's made by 20 people or whatever. So it's not as impressive when you think of it from that angle than when you think of I don't really know what went into the technical aspects of the other games on there, but like Super Meat Boy, which, it was made by, engine was written by Jess Tommy and ported to like everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think development time frame as a developer actually matters a lot when I'm impressed by somebody's project. Like Monaco was done in 8 weeks, and
Yeah.
It's not super technically impressive from a sort of shader standpoint. Like there's not a ton of art and impressive effects, but there's multiplayer, and it's really solid. And it's like that's hard to do in 8 weeks. So I don't know. I think we will entertain the notion of doing a jury for technical, just because it makes more sense to have all the judges score technical, and then the jury will actually pick the finalists with the main scores as kind of a guide. Like, here's what the judges thought was sort of bubbling up to the top, and then you guys kind of filter this down a little bit more.
Right.
Which is exactly how the New Ovo was done. That was basically all the judges had a checkbox, and it's like they could check it, and then the jury would use that as a guide, but they wouldn't have to pick a game that was, most checked by all the judges. It was a way to filter 300 games down to like a more manageable, like 30 or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I didn't really see anyone complaining about the new OVO category nominees either.
Yeah, I actually thought that this year, like last year, there was the really big stink about you have to burn the rope was kind of it was either the best thing in the world or like the stupidest decision ever, depending on who you're talking to.
Right. I don't think you can really judge a joke very easily anyway. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, do I give this a good score for making me laugh, or do I give it a bad score for whatever, You can't really, be critical of something that's meant to be a joke.
Yeah. So what's next for you guys? I mean, what's your time frame like for closure? What are your plans for GDC, which is a scary month away now?
Yeah. Well, we're planning on getting like a lot more levels and engine touch-ups done. I've fixed a few things since that were confusing people in the game beforehand. If anyone was judging there, and this was in the Flash version too, if you dropped a key into darkness, it would land on ground that it just didn't really behave the same way that the rest of the stuff behaved. And I was like, I used PAX and Indiecade and stuff as sort of big play testing sessions for the game. And I was like seeing people try to solve puzzles like in a logical manner, but not something that the game allowed. So I fixed up a bunch of that. I didn't resubmit it for finalist judging. No, didn't feel like it, and I didn't have it done in time or tested. But we're going to finish up a lot for GDC, and then hopefully our goal is to get the game close to being done by the end of the year.
Nice. Do you guys think you're gonna make it? It's always hard to
Oh.
predict, I guess.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. We have to get the mood right. We have to work out stuff with the story and the ending and stuff, and
Get everything
they're just
the same.
yeah, art style stuff, and there's tons of work. And of course, like if I don't know, depending on how well the next couple of weeks go, I mean, we might have to end up porting it to something, which, considering the state of my engine, would take a lot of time.
You mean porting to a platform?
Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
I'll just leave that open to interpretation, I guess.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the mystery.
Probably the Apple tablet, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it runs on OS X. I know.
Does the Apple tablet have buttons, or is it going to be retarded like the iPhone?
Probably retarded like the iPhone.
Awesome, great, wonderful.
I think it even runs the iPhone OS.
Yeah, it's going to be so much more like a big iPhone than a small computer. I mean,
Yeah.
Apple sees the iPhone as a huge, huge win for them.
Give me.
But anyway, all right. So yeah,
Poke the button 10,000 times, but on a big in HD.
super HD. Well, thank you for your guys' time. I'm kind of
You're
breaking
welcome.
up there. I'm not sure if I should interject or not. Yeah, thanks for your time. We're going to keep you guys, if you guys are around, we're going to bring you back on in like 20 minutes after the next segment, and then you can take questions from the chat or discuss more things.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Let me get Steve in here to talk about the Game Developers Conference. It is a
Steve Swift.
Mr. Swink.
Gentlemen,
Hello,
Boys.
friend.
it's a little bit of an echo drop there.
Yeah. Who's the echo?
That's better.
That's better.
Get to the
sweet. So let's talk Game Development Independent Game Summit.
The
Sweet talking.
IGS.
I'm curious, how did you two get involved with Think Services and the IGS?
I think it was
All
mostly us just being kind of bossy.
Well, yeah, the actual, like the original contact was, so the IGS has been around for 4 years now. This is going to be the 4th year. And 4 years ago, I emailed Simon Carlis, the brand manager for Think Services, and I actually wanted to give a talk about physics games based on my stuff at Funmotion, which is a site that I was running very actively at the time and isn't so active now. And I emailed him and said, hey, do you think there's room for a talk about games at the the GDC? And he said, well, probably not at the main GDC, but I'm thinking about doing this independent game summit thing. Like, what do you think about that? And I saw that as a very open email, so I basically pulled people together and we did like a brainstorm for an hour, and then I emailed Simon back like, well, I think an IGS would look like this, and I gave him a huge list of who I thought should be speaking and what topics should be speaking on, and he basically just wrote back and said, hey, do you want to help plan this thing? So the first year we actually were advisors for it, but kind of in the background. We didn't go up on stage and MC it, and then Simon turned out that he didn't really like MCing stuff. So the second year we were basically up on stage managing things, and then that segued into helping run the IGF. And now we just kind of do a lot of stuff for them.
What kind of stuff?
Dirty stuff.
The things. Steve and I help. I guess our titles are now. They're either co-chair or co-organizer. I'm not sure what our actual titles are, but we help out with the IGF, and that means we do logistics. I do all the coding for the judging back end, and then we do a lot of discussion about how to position things and where to go with it. We also introduce and MC the awards before passing them off to the actual hosts, and then we also plan all the content for the Independent Game Summit and then MC that.
So are you guys responsible for coming up with ideas for specific talks, or how
Yeah.
does that end up going down?
Well, so what usually happens is we sit down on the phone and we say, between Simon and us and one other person, what do we want to have, at the IGS this year? And we just kind of brainstorm a bunch of different topics and a bunch of different ideas for talks, and then we say, okay, well, we think that such and such a person would be a good fit for this. We don't have someone for this yet, but we're going to go try and find someone. And we know everybody now, so we have a pretty good idea of who would be a good speaker from an objective standpoint, just as a good public speaker, and who would be a good person to talk about a particular topic. So we just kind of organize it that way. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty from the hip in general, but it usually turns out well because we just sort of tend to invite our friends who we know are good at speaking, and people that we're really interested in meeting. It's like a lot of a lot of people that I'm friends with now we know because we thought, we really like this game, or we really want this person to give their opinion on this particular topic, and then we brought them in, and now we're really good friends with them.
Okay,
That's kinda how
so
the
it sounds
indie
like
scene
it's
works.
almost like a combination of this would be a talk that is necessary for right now, and also this would just be straight up fun.
Yeah,
it's a two-pronged approach. Sometimes we'll actually have a topic where it's like we need to talk about iPhone. Like last year, it was getting to the point where we thought, we need to have someone come up here and talk about success or not on the iPhone. Or we'll go the other approach, which is we have a person like, hey, we want to have John Blow, Ron Carmel, someone else speak. What could they speak on? And we kind of converge the two on a set of topics. Sessions.
yeah. Most topics, most sessions start as man crushes. That's usually how it goes.
Sure. Get the fun out of the way, and then
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we know Colin Northway. It's like, oh, he's dreamy.
yeah. What's it like up there on the stage for the first half of the award show?
You can't really see anyone in the audience, so it's kind of just normal.
Yeah, up on the stage itself, there's basically so many lights you actually can't see past like the first two rows. So it's basically like talking to a bunch of lights, like Jean-Luc Picard in that one episode where he's talking about how many lights there are.
There are 5.
Yeah.
Actually, usually one thing that I've noticed is pretty much every single time I've been up on stage giving that address in front of all those people, I always seem to find Derek in the crowd, and I just stare at him, and it soothes
You
me.
not find Derek in the crowd.
Exactly my point.
Yeah.
He shimmers
like a vampire.
Well, so
Yeah,
now
actually, yeah, go on.
sorry, I was just going to say, do you guys end up interfacing with all of the people that are walking up and off the stage? Like, how does that go down when you're back there waiting?
For the IGF stuff, we're basically stuck in our little schedule. But the most fun is actually after the IGF. We're just backstage for the Game Developers Choice Awards, and there's a lot of like lifetime for this, and it's the Harmonix guys are up on stage for that, and we basically sit backstage and drink beer, and then when they come back to win awards, we basically pull out our camera and shake their hand and get a photo taken with everybody.
Yeah,
Notable photos?
Yeah, we have some pretty awesome pictures.
So you got a photo with Kojima last year.
Yeah, yes, we did.
And you broke your neck immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
What about the trophy girls? What is that all about?
Yeah. Let's talk about Trophy Girls.
Trophy
Yeah,
Girls is an awesome piece of misogyny. Like they
Yeah,
essentially put out a competition and they say, "Oh, hey, students, you can get a GDC scholarship," and then they handpick some cute girls out of the students and make them be trophy girls.
Now, are they always single?
No.
I don't think they've ever been single.
Can we make sure they're single this year?
We'll see what we can do.
All right, thank you.
Classic.
I know of one particular trophy girl that we're gonna have this year, but I think you've already been with that, so I don't. It may be old news.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're actually announcing the hosts for the IGF on Tuesday, I think. We're actually not going to host the whole award show because Andy's not hosting this year because he entered and then became a finalist with Monaco. So we need to clone Andy, basically.
So is the idea with Andy that people you guys are too worried about his association, like if he submits and also gets up on stage?
Yeah, he was really worried about
hand the award to himself, like.
Yeah, just the perception if he did read off like, and the nominees are, and the winner is, and just hands himself the award. I think people would cry foul, even if he's not involved at all in like the judging process. I think people would.
Well, he needs to be sitting down in the crowd anyway. He needs to be like feeling all of the gut wrenching, sugar crashing tension that we're all going to be feeling.
Yeah. So we should probably actually talk about IGS lineup itself. We recently announced. I think we've announced like 6 or 7 of the 10 talks. We have fewer talks this year. Last year we had 19 talks, but what we were doing we were doing a lot of like 15-minute plus 30-minute plus 15-minute talks. And this year they actually want to keep all of the summits on the same schedule, which means that we can't break into our crazy rapid fire talks, which kind of sucks, but whatever. There's a story on Kama Sutra. Let me just tiny URL it in the briefest of moments, where we announced like 6 or 7 of them.
Also, it outlines 2 of the other ones, so it actually we're announcing 1, 2, 3. I think there's 10 there that are actually announced.
How many are
Yeah.
there this year?
It's 2 days of content, and I think we have. I'm not entirely sure how many total. I think it's 10, or maybe no. Wait, there's 10 hours of content, and I think there's probably like 15 talks.
Yeah, something in that range.
We have a couple of half an hour and half an hour talks. If you go to tinyurl.com/IGS lineup, that just goes to the Gama Sutra article. I mean, we have some talks with. We have Ron Carmel talking about what's wrong with the publishing model and how to make it work for indie. I think that's going to be something of an announcement. And then we have some post-mortem style talks. We have the Scrap Metal guys talking about their upcoming XBLA title. We have some sort of post-mortem-ish stuff from NinjaBee. They're going to basically do development lessons from all of their games, which has at this point been a ton of different games.
Yeah, they have like a bunch of games.
We were
Kelly
playing
Santiago.
Definitely the other day. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, they've. It's been a while since they've released a game, hasn't it? Or maybe they've done contract stuff. They do a lot of contract stuff that no one really knows about.
They did the the Doritos game, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
The big dinosaur game.
Yeah.
So what else do we have coming up that's cool? We have Kelly Santiago and Robin Hunecki talking about how to manage more of an exploratory, experimental game design process as opposed to, hey, we're making this game 2011 version versus, hey, we're making a game about the following feeling.
Out of what's been announced, what are you guys particularly excited about?
Well, I'm super excited about Kelly and Robin because that's the kind of development I'm pursuing currently, and I would love to hear talks from people who have experienced that and come out the other side successfully. And I'm sure Kyle and probably Tyler would be interested to hear that as well. I guess
Sure.
depending on their opinions about how the games that they created turned. But I mean, I think that will be really good. NinjaBee is always really good. They're always
Yeah.
prepared. And they have lessons that people like us who are young and doofy and just kind of do things off the cuff tend to really need to hear over and over again. Like when Ben showed that picture of his two twin children that were born premature, and his message was you should all get health care as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the people in chat are most likely to know who Kelly Santiago is. Who's Robin Hunecki? She's EA at some point, right?
Yeah, she worked at EA. She was the lead designer on My Sims, and she was also very much involved with Boom Blocks.
Okay.
And she did the mechanics, aesthetics, dynamics framework with Mark LeBlanc and one other person whose name I'm forgetting. She's been around for a long time. She did some prototypes for like the early indie game jams and stuff like that.
Yeah,
she's
now
generally
she's
scholarly, right? I mean, she's been writing about design for a long time too, if I remember correctly.
She came from I think Northwest something University.
Yeah, Google it. We should not waste our time trying to actual memory.
Yeah. See, one thing to point out too now I'm just going to sound like I'm a shill, but Google did recently announce that they're going to give out Android devices, and that includes they're counting the IGS as a relevant summit. So if you get an IGS pass, you basically get a free Android, either a Ryzen Droid or a Google Nexus One.
But did you notice that speakers don't get?
Actually,
what?
Now that we're on the air, I was told not to say this officially, but I was told to pass the message that speakers at the relevant summits might be able to get them. Is the word. Now I'm kind of pinned to the wall on this, but I guess So maybe is the answer. It sounds like it'll probably be speakers will have like a second pass at them. So like if they don't all just vanish in the first day or first 5 hours or whatever, it sounds like the speakers will be able to go in later and get them.
So maybe we should take a step back really quickly and just talk about why Simon wanted to create the Independent Game Summit and what we sort of view it as, what its role is at the Game Developers Conference and in the games scene in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he wanted to create it because he saw all these people going to the Game Developers Conference, and you'd see the same faces in the same sessions. So it was the people who would go to the experimental gameplay sessions and all those kinds of sessions, and then not really hang out outside of that. And I think he wanted to give those people a place and sort of support the emerging indie scene, which is actually fairly prescient 4 years ago.
Yeah, and at the time there were basically a couple of sessions and a couple of roundtables, especially that were aimed at indie games. I think he just wanted to kind of move those off the main conference into its own little summit. And back then it was still like the first 2 days were the tutorial days that weren't necessarily summits. And then they kind of had like the educational summit and then a couple other summits, and then they decided to do like more summit-based structure. And then I think today almost all of the summit days are summits themselves and not like tutorials and stuff.
Yeah, there's still like the one NVIDIA paid for tutorial or 3D Studio Max, but most of them are the summits these days. It kind of feels like when we go to a restaurant and there's like 12 of us and we walk in, we're all being really loud and they see us in the back where no one else can hear us, but that's cool. And also, it was really important that we have a venue for Kyle and Tommy to recite Bill Pullman's monologue from the end of Independence Day.
That wouldn't have really happened anywhere else, probably.
No,
Yeah, that's
there was no outlet for that, and it's good that it was there.
Thank
There's a
God.
video of that, but I actually don't have it saved. I need to get it local on my computer and then watch it every day
shit.
to like wake myself up in the morning.
Good morning.
that'd be the best alarm ever.
Damn right. That word has new meaning today.
Wait on your iPhone. You can just play an MP3, right? As a
Not
ring.
not as an alarm, I don't think. It is a ringtone you can, but I don't think you can as an
Yeah,
alarm.
you have to like convert it into a ringtone.
Yeah.
Then you can. Then,
So yeah, what I guess I haven't really thought about this, but it's a question for anybody right now. Like, what are your predictions for this GDC?
predict.
I mean, just like in general, it's to me it feels like it's going to be really, really big. Like last year was the last. Like last year we planned out this dinner that we do every year, like the big indie kind of dinner, and we had 55 people show up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think if I were to plan a similar dinner, which I'm not sure if I'm going to or not, that would be like 75 or maybe even like 100 people. It feels like the indie contingent is becoming incredibly large.
It's
Well, if we get up around 100, we can get a group rate. I'm pretty sure.
Or we could just like, tear the place up and leave.
Yeah, we can get a group rate on a riot.
Yeah, group rate and some sweet TVs.
A couple of cinder blocks where we smash in the front window of an Indian food restaurant.
oh man, that sounds awesome.
I actually had like a weird GDC realization in this just last year's. It's like my 4th or 5th GDC, and I actually didn't really go to a whole lot of talks in this last year. Like I ended up spending so much of my time just interfacing with the other indies and having fun, and like I don't really feel like it was a waste at all. Like the community is just so big and amazing. Like the lack of sessions didn't really have an effect on me, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like I'm now that the community is even bigger and we've all made even that much more friends amongst ourselves, like I don't even know what's going to happen this time around. Like, am I going to be in Moscone at all?
I don't know.
Probably not.
At some
Probably not
point,
after the IGS.
At some point, we're going to hit critical mass, and there's just going to be like this burning sun in the center of our big group as it walks around, and just like games are going to come flowing out of it at all times. Straight to the internet.
Yeah.
Direct pipe. It's going to be a fun GDC for sure. It's going to be pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, who in the chat is actually going to GDC?
What's that?
I was just going to say, who in the chat is going to the GDC?
Yeah.
Who in the chat that we don't yet know is going to GC, I guess.
Demruth is.
Demra.
We know him. We know Alex. Oh god,
Who's
I can't
that?
stop coughing. Can't stop coughing.
That's Hazard, Alex.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right, well, let me bring in John and Tyler back in for more general discussion to end up the show.
Cool.
And then we will segue into our regular after show. Welcome back, John.
Hey, what's up?
Hey,
So what are your thoughts about GDC?
GDC.
Well, I like it. Succinct.
I don't really.
Slash
We're already here.
Is this your first GDC, John?
Yeah, it's my first GDC.
Nice.
I
Oh,
went to E3 and PAX.
You went to Indiecade too.
You went to the hotel room indicate.
I went to Indiecade too.
One day.
Indiecade was very small.
Yeah. I'm still waiting on that feedback, by the way.
oh, from the database crash?
that they're still
Whoops.
trying to recover. They got like CTU agents like cycling through garbage and shit, trying to like hard drive back, and yeah, no, these guys are morons.
I think this will actually be my 12th GDC, which makes me feel old.
Damn,
Yeah.
son.
This is only
1999 was the first one we went to.
Yeah, we were at the first IGF, so I was just thinking it's the 12th annual IGF. I'm like, okay, well, it's the 12th annual GDC for me. That's how I line it up.
Years ago, I was like 8 years old.
Yeah, that's what blows my mind about when I was
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I was trying to think why the IGF is so important to people, and then I realized for a lot of people like you that are a little bit younger, like ever since you kind of realized you wanted to make indie games, there was always this thing called the IGF. It didn't appear out of nowhere; it was always there as its bedrock foundation.
Yeah.
Speaking of pressure, I don't think many people realize that when the IGF was started 12 years ago or whatever, there was no such thing as an independent game scene or independent game movement, and people like Tyler were 8 years old. So you should give thanks to Alex Dunn, who had the bizarre foresight to create this thing out of nothing. And it's never made money. It's never been a thing that Think Services CMP before that made any money off of. It's just always been something that people have done because they felt like it was necessary. It was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Amen to that.
I think the first time I ever heard about the IGF was something about Alien Hominid.
Yeah, same.
Gish.
Oh yeah, Alien Hominid.
I think
think-
Gish
yeah,
was
and-
actually the first indie game I'd ever heard about.
I
read about
it
in
Coast
Mac.
Newgrounds.
Well, I read about it in Macworld before I even knew what Newgrounds was.
fucking nerd reading macro.
It's what my dad had his bathroom reading for some reason.
Yeah, whatever.
I was like 10.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
Awesome. Are you drawing spider webs on our names because we're old, Ben?
No.
All right, I have a half a mind to come down there and teach you a lesson, young whippersnapper.
Now
I
I'm
will
drawing.
fire my cane in your face, boy.
So I have a question for Tyler.
Yeah.
I've been playing. So I played the Flash version of Closure, and since I'm an IGF judge as well as an organizer, I got to play the newer version.
Mhm.
And I'm interested in your take on how to teach people how to play crazy crap like you're doing with Closure and I'm doing with a certain game that I'm not talking about yet and other people are doing with other games.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
because I watched the trailer video that you put out, or like it wasn't a trailer, but it was like a gameplay video, and it was just
Mhm.
like you rapid firing through the levels, and I just watched that, and I'm like, oh my god, what happens when a normal Xbox player Tatar goes to try and play the game? Like I'm so afraid that they're just going to be so terrified by all the stuff that's going on, they're just going to disengage.
Yeah, well, I got a good feeling of what that happened when I was at PAX and Indie Kid and stuff, because people would come up and be like, "Is this game like Halo?" and then pick up the controller and start playing the game, and most people actually got the game about the third level, which is that there's a point in the game where essentially, if you don't know the concept of it, you're gonna die on that level no matter what. It's the third level where you have to shuffle the lights down to get both of them to the door. If you don't know that what you can't see doesn't exist, you're not going to shuffle the lights. You're going to walk to the door and you're going to try to jump back to the first light and fall through the ground. And it happened pretty much 95% of the time for the people playing the game, where they jump back to get the light, fall through the ground, and then realize what's going on. And it worked way better than I thought that it would actually work in terms of getting people to pick up the concept. And then they get stuck like 5 levels later anyway.
Right. But so what's your plan for attack there? Are you gonna just build out a bunch of levels and then worry about teaching people how to do the cool stuff later, or are you sort of going it one step at a time? So I guess our approach right now, having not built a whole lot of levels yet and not done a whole bunch of testing, is to create a bunch of levels that we think are totally rad. So whatever's happening in the level, whatever the mechanic is, we don't worry about how crazy it is and how difficult it is to understand. We just want to make sure that when you get it and you do it correctly, it's really, really awesome, right? But then
Yeah.
we're planning to take those levels and spread them out in some kind of order, and then like make levels in between them until people could just go through it like a smooth progression. Are you doing something similar? Or?
It's similar that way. I mean, I kind of build the levels in order because as I build the levels, I learn how my own mechanics interact with each other. So I end up building crazier levels and stuff. And since at least in the Flash version, introducing the concepts happen in a certain order. So I'm pulling off of that. Other than that, it's just like keys and doors and physics and buttons and stuff. Everyone's been like everyone's seen those in games beforehand, so I can kind of afford not to teach people exactly how a key unlocks a door, because you can pretty much assume that if you've played any game before that you're going to get the fact that you need a key to open a door that has a big lock on it. So it's
And I
like
guess it's John's job to make sure that people recognize it's a key.
right.
Right.
Yeah, I have him paint like hints on the ground too.
Yeah.
To sort of, yeah. There's actually a funny thing in one level where the way that I designed the level to beat it, my way of beating the level was different from the way that he thought you had to beat the level. So the painting on the ground was in like a different spot than I thought it should have been. It's kind of funny. I think we've both gotten so good at the game that we don't have to tell each other how to beat the levels anymore.
Yeah, I never ask him how to beat any of the levels, really.
Well, that's good. At least indicates that there is the possibility of getting 100% mastery.
Right. Well, I mean, once you get into the one mechanic in our game, everything else is fairly basic. You've seen it in other games before, mechanics.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of important because I could stick a whole ton of crazy, ridiculous stuff to learn in the game, and then nobody would get it, and they'd be constantly in a state of, I don't know what the heck this weird symbol is, kind of stuff.
Oh, like Love, where S made up his whole own language for everything or whatever.
He did?
Yeah. Yeah, like if you go into his little tools panel, where as you're running around and you want to do something, he has that little tools panel that folds out, and each tool has its own made-up symbol that he created. And so if you want to actually know what's what, you have to just memorize the symbols.
Yeah, basically not that. The only thing people have to learn in my game is like, oh, if the light's not on it, it's not solid.
Right.
Once
The
they know
spotlights
that,
are pretty hot. I'm enjoying that. The spotlights, that's pretty hot.
yeah. I've done a few changes to those since. Make them a little less annoying to actually design levels around.
I see.
Oh, man. Sorry, guys. I was eating a burrito.
Classic.
Fine.
Now I'm hungry.
Classic.
I'm
Yeah.
hungry.
We have 5 more minutes of actual radio show.
Yeah.
So anybody have anything else highly, I don't know, angry, rantish to share? I think people kind of ranted themselves out on the IGF stuff. Not today, but like previously.
Mhm.
Nope.
I got
Yeah.
I wonder if there's going to be anything left for the indie rents at GDC.
Everyone's just going to be like, I'm really tired of this.
Why are there so many rents? That's what I'll rant about.
Totally gonna fade out.
Not those.
rant on the
if
number of
it was.
rants. However,
Yeah,
I
we
saw-
actually... Yeah, we are ending the IGS with the indie rants again, so we're going to have an hour-long session with, I think, 10 rants lined up.
I'm one of those.
What are you ranting about, Tommy?
I don't know. I think I'm going to rant about how. I guess you can call it a rant because it does piss me off. But everybody is like, oh, we're going to make an indie game, but then they still have like this corporate sort of mentality when it comes to marketing and like actually talking about their game, because it just kind of irritates the shit out of me. So I'll probably rant about something like that, like stop being a drone.
Yeah.
I just got out of the military, so we're a bunch of devoted people to make the game. I have business experience with it. There's a topic on that somewhere.
Yeah. Or I might just, I just might make up my own language and just start talking.
Just get so drunk that you can't.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sweet.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever I rant about, I'll try to make it as entertaining as possible because I don't want to bore anybody.
Right.
Oh,
That's
No.
always a backup plan.
What
It's a
is
big
in
metaphor.
your hands?
I do have one little blurb on IGF that I never quite got to broadcast that I will probably rant about at some point in the future, and that is, why does IGF have to be about innovation and like the definition of indie and all these sorts of things? Is it possible that it could just be like this really great motivator for lots of people to get a lot of work done? And is it possible that the winners aren't as important as the fact that there's a big competition that has a prize that motivates all these people and gives them a nice deadline and stuff?
I
Okay.
think they beat that one to death on tape.
I guess so. I never really heard anyone say that. I read that really long thread, and it was pretty much just a lot of people bitching about the process and stuff. And I was thinking to myself, is it really that important, the output of the process? I mean, I think the output of the process and the goal from our perspective anyway is just to create a competition where a whole bunch of people can feel motivated and have something to work towards.
The problem with that thread, the TIG source thread, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem with that thread is mainly it was just Paul Harris bitching, and it was like, it's like you're never going to please those two guys no matter what you do, because Arthur Lee's like some sort of weird ass schizophrenic, and Paul Harris just likes to bitch. So I mean, unless you did everything that Paul Harris said, plus awarded him every single award, I don't think he would shut his mouth. So,
And then you'd piss off Tale of Tales.
Oh yeah, who cares about make games?
For anybody on the archive, it's tinyurl.com/IGF thread. Will take you to the TIG source thread in question.
Yeah, so I
actually
guess...
made that. Yeah.
Thanks, Corey.
But yeah, it's kind of true. Like the whole wanting to like enter and get into the IGF was like a huge motivation for getting so much work done on Closure.
Yeah, and
I agree.
I feel like that's the point of IGF, and I feel like that's sort of gotten lost in all this talk about who should win and who should do this and who should do that. I mean, we're never going to satisfy everyone because everyone's view of who should win is their own personal picks about who should win. So
Right. And there's more than 20 good games.
Yeah. And I feel like if we just took away IGF next year, people would maybe realize that it's not about who wins. It's about having the competition in the first place and giving people a motivation and incentive to work.
Yeah, no one would make anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like here's when this fall or last fall, I had to get my game ready for PAX, then a month later for Indiecade, then a month later for the IGF submission deadline. And I got so much work done in those 3 months, and then none after that.
Yeah, that's a pretty common pattern.
Or you could spend a whole year swimming in your pool or whatever, and then get work done. Six consecutive years.
Yeah, my only real comment on the IGF and innovation, and not really the IGF, but just innovation in general, is that if the possibility space for self-expression through game development is so narrow that it's only possible by doing something new, then I think games are worse off than I think. Like the people that bitch that, oh, this has already been done before, it's just a list-off platformer, Metroidvania, whatever, then it can have no merit, I think is completely fallacious and retarded.
I really liked John Mack's take on that during that innovation talk that we gave, I don't know, 3 years ago, whenever it was.
I think that was the first IGF. That was 4 years ago.
Or
first IGS.
You guys should, the people on that thread should go watch that talk really quick.
Yeah, there's a video on it online.
John Mack's point was that if you do something in your own idiom, right, regardless if you're just cloning some game or you're making whatever, shooter, whatever it is, if you do it your own way, then it's innovative because necessarily it comes from the heart. It comes from what makes you you. And if you do that, then you're doing right. And that doesn't really matter what other people think is innovative or not, because you can debate that definition till the cows come home. It won't matter.
Yeah,
John
I think
Mack.
if
John
you
Mack.
express what Mario means to you, like even if you re-express that, you're just taking the same thing and expressing that again, I think that's totally valid.
Yeah.
All right, well, we are out of time for the recording segment. So special thanks to all of our guests, Tyler Glaiel, John Schubbe, did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Sweet, and Steve Swink, did I get that right?
No.
It's Steve Swift.
Your TIGRadio hosts are Matthew Wagner, Ben Reese, and Tommy Reffinez. TIGRadio theme song by Danny Baranowski. TIGRadio website by Kyle Pulver. TIGRadio is proudly sponsored by absolutely no one. See you next week.
See ya.